When it comes to Arena, new players can feel overwhelmed during the drafting process. Unlike Constructed, you aren't exactly sure if you're going to get an aggressive or control-style draft. Additionally, with the bucket system, each pick can be difficult when cards of similar power level are in the same pick. Today, we'd like to talk about a checklist to keep in mind when drafting your deck. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the Tempo Storm YouTube channel to keep up to date with our Hearthstone content. Now, let's begin. The three areas we're going to discuss are the following: curve, initiative, and late game effects. Let's start with the curve. Essentially, the early game curve is necessary to fight for initial board control. Many players avoid drafting curve minions over flashier cards. This usually leads to a quick loss with a bunch of cards stuck in your hand. Curve minions have to give competitive stats for their mana cost. In every meta, the early game curve is different. Messenger Raven, for example, gives 2 mana worth of stats for 3 mana. It should not be treated as a good curve minion compared to a Blackwalled Pixie. Roughly speaking, you're looking to focus about half of your deck on being curve focused. We made a great video talking about the ideal curve in the past that you should check out in the description below. Let's look at our current curve recommendations for the Rise of Shadows rotating set. You want to have 6 to 8 1-2 mana minions, 3 to 4 3 mana minions, 4 4 mana minions, and 2 to 3 6 mana minions. In the first 10 picks of your draft, you usually do not have to consider the curve. However, in cases where you see several expensive premium cards like Eccentric Scribe, you should still try to balance your deck a little bit by avoiding 3 6-drops in the first 10 picks. After the first 10 picks, you want to consider the curve and try to fill each mana slot up. There's still a bit of nuance here. If you cannot draft enough 1 to 2 mana minions, you'll want to draft more 3 to 4 drops to compensate for it. For a class like Rogue, you can avoid drafting as many 2-drops and favor 1-drops a bit more due to the hero power. The next section on your checklist is Initiative. By that, we mean cards that offer immediate board impact the turn they're played. Cards with Initiative are further divided into 4 sections: small removals, large removals, board clears, and buffs. Now, buffs offer conditional initiative because you need at least a minion on the board to use. Silver Sword is an extreme example of a premium card that can remove small stuff and buff the whole board. Weapons in general are often premium cards because of their potential to remove several minions. In most cases, they offer tempo and value. Another card we want to discuss is HenchClan Hogsteed. This little fella is considered premium because he fulfills 2 roles by being a decent curve card and a small removal. We mentioned how important initiative is, but it's also important to have a limit. Sometimes a deck with too many removals can end up losing early on because you have no curve to push damage. Without a curve, you're at the mercy of how greedy the opponent is. At low wins, you can face extremely value-heavy decks that a deck without a curve can't deal with. With that in mind, this is the rough guide we have for cards with initiative. You want 2 to 3 small removals, 1 to 2 large removals, and 2 to 4 board clears. Large removal is an interesting topic. At high wins, players are often drafting against Burly Shovelfist. That is, people are drafting less late-game taunts and opting for more annoying mid-sized minions such as Eccentric Scribe. With Burly Shovelfist, you're often not missing out on large removals, so the consideration here is to actively avoid taking too many large removals. Board clears versus board buffs is another interesting choice. We specifically put them together because a deck will be really awkward if you draft as many board clears as board buffs. Right now, Druid and Paladin are predominantly about buffing the board, while Mage and Warlock have access to multiple board clears. While players typically do not play around Consecration, a board clear effect is usually not what the Paladin wants to do when you can draft a true Silver instead. We're not suggesting to avoid all board clears in Paladin and Druid. Swipe and Starfall are still good cards for Druid to pick, and they're premium because of the multiple roles they fill, and not solely because of their AoE effect. Let's end our checklist with late game cards. At the start of your run, having a good curve with a balance of initiative will give you the most consistency to win games. At higher wins, your deck needs to have enough gas to beat premium control decks. These are the decks that draft a decent enough curve with a ton of premium board clears and value generation. So, what exactly are late game cards? Late game bombs are minions that cost 7 or more mana. They deal a substantial amount of damage and need to be removed immediately. You want about 3 of these in your deck. If you don't have enough cards costing 7 or more, draft more 6-drops to compensate. Card draw or card generation is another form of late game. These are cards you tend to play past turn 7 in order to play around a board clear. It's usually not advised to play them earlier because of their lack of initiative. In an average deck, you want to have some form of card draw to improve the consistency of your deck. The amount of card generation you want is a bit more flexible. We talked about Messenger Raven a lot and we'll apply it here as well. The 3-2 stat line does trade into a 2-drop, but it's still a better curve play than Arcane Intellect. You can usually get away with drafting more card generation than card draw. Let's summarize the checklist we made. The curve, which is about half your deck, 6 to 8 1-2 mana minions, 3 to 4 3 mana minions, 4 4 mana minions, 2 to 3 6 mana minions. Cards with initiative, about 6 to 9 cards. 2 to 3 small removals, 1 to 2 large removals, 2 to 4 board clears. Late game cards, about 5 to 6 cards. 3 bombs that cost 7 or more, 1 to 2 card draw, and 2 to 3 card generation. The number of cards in each area will differ based on the meta, but the 3 categories stay the same. For example, in Rastakhan you were looking at more 3-drops instead of 2-drops. It's important to avoid having too many cards from one category. If the deck is too curvy, it may lack enough late game and initiative. If there's too much card draw, there likely isn't much of a curve. You want to slowly build up each box. A common issue is that players will forego a curve for value. For example, you're offered 3 curve picks on pick 20. You have 3 6-drops already, but no 3-drops right now. The picks are Eccentric Scribe, Hired Gun, and Chillwind Yeti. Eccentric Scribe is the better card, but you need a playable 3-drop right now. This wraps up our guide on drafting in Arena. What's worked out for you? Are you more of a control or aggressive player? Let us know in the comments below. As always, make sure to subscribe to the Tempo Storm YouTube channel to keep up to date with our Hearthstone content. See you next time.